Hi, I'm Sean J. Harris, and I'm the CEO of the Thousandfold Group. And I want to welcome you here today as I share some valuable information with you. Just a little bit about myself. I have a diverse background in real estate and business development entrepreneurship. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My great aunt and uncle actually owned one of the first African-American owned hotels in Atlanta, Georgia. Both my parents also owned companies, and I own 7 corporations today, and I also have an 8 and a 9-year-old who own their own corporations as well. So guys, I come from a background of strong entrepreneurship and business acumen, financial literacy. Now, here's the thing. Many of you guys are just like me. We all heard growing up the same thing pretty much. Go to school, get good grades, and one day we'll get this great job and live an incredible lifestyle. Well, to many of us, it didn't quite work out that way. Now, here's the deal: why we have to examine and unpackage why it didn't happen the way we thought it would work. First, we have to understand that there's 3 types of education. The first type of education is what's called an academic or scholastic education. And with this type of education, this is where we learn the basic skills of reading, writing, and arithmetic. This is where we start to cultivate our minds to exchange our time for someone else's money. A great example of this is just getting a job. So pretty much what we're conditioned that we must acquire a skill set, and we'll exchange that skill set for someone else's money. Now, here's the deal with that. We tend to get in a position where we're not making the type of money that we want to make to accomplish the dreams and the goals that we may have. So what most people do is they fall back onto what's called a professional education. And with a professional education, this is where we learn to specialize, which we tend to want to be either an attorney, a physician, an engineer, a plumber, things like that, where we get specialized professional training or trade training. Now, in this particular scenario, we tend to make more money in this position, but it also usually requires more time. Now, here's the deal, guys. We all have the same amount of time, which is 24 hours in a day. But it's how we use that time. We have to be good stewards of that time and be able to use it effectively. Now, here's another portion to that. You have to figure out how to be able to multiply or duplicate or franchise yourself. This way, you're able to have more time in a day than what the day allows. And I'll explain that. Now, the third type of education is an education that we just don't learn in school. And this is what's called a financial education. Think about it, guys. What financial course did you take in school? Exactly. So here's the thing with financial education. It teaches us financial literacy. We have to be able to understand the language of money, the language of business, to be able to learn business acumen. And this just isn't taught in the school system. Now, you may say, well, Sean, I took a business administration course in college. Well, again, listen to the title of that degree, Business Administration. In this particular situation, you're learning how to administer someone else's business, but not how to start and develop a business of your own. We're just not taught that here in the American school system. So you have to take it upon yourself to get the information and knowledge that you need to be able to get the financial education that you need, the business acumen that you need. Because look, when we were in school, we were always taught that your success will be determined by your grades, by your report card. But here's what you find out when you get into the real world, whether it's working a job or owning a business, is that your financial statement becomes your adult report card. And that's where your success is going to be based on what your acumen is when it comes to business or how to be able to create income. So here's the thing with that. You have to be able to have a spare income oftentimes, because we get in a position where we work jobs and we're not making the income that we thought we'd make. And so many people are living paycheck to paycheck. So if 2 paychecks are missed, guys, that could be catastrophe for the average family in America. So what I implore people to do is to examine your household and your finances, because I had to look at my own personal example. I had a background in law enforcement, and I always knew that if something happened to my physical ability to perform, such as getting injured or just perhaps hurt my trigger finger, that could possibly end my career and my way of creating income. And I had to ask myself, If I had no other options or opportunity or skill sets aside from law enforcement, what would I do? I call that the X out factor. And this is a question you may have to ask yourself is, what happens to your family if you are X'd out of the equation? I had to give this some serious thought. And when I determined that, I said, I need to find different sources of income that doesn't necessarily require my physical ability to perform, and more so uses my mind or either a system in place where I don't have to physically be there. Now, you may say, well, Sean, what do you mean a system-driven business? Here's a great example. We've all been to fast food restaurants. The biggest fast food restaurants that we're all familiar with, they are all the same. No matter what state you go to or what country you go to, they're all the same. A number one at this location is the same as a number one at this location. And the food tastes relatively identical because it's a system that's proven to work. So again, if it's not broken, you don't fix it. You can't go to one franchise and expect a burger here and then go to another franchise and they sell a totally unique item that's only signature to their particular store. So if it's a franchise, it's all the same thing. So the same thing with building a business. If you have a system in place, you're able to duplicate and get the same results, and which will also come out to be the same income results as well, which is always important. So think of this. If you could place yourself on a copier machine and duplicate yourself, clone yourself, and you had 10 different you working in 10 different locations, but at the exact same time, you have effectively folded time or duplicated yourself or franchised yourself. So here's a great example. Let's say you're a carpenter and you were building cabinets. Well, if you could only be with client 1 or client A to build those cabinets, then that's all the money you can make. You can't make money outside of this particular job until we complete this job. But imagine if you had 10 other carpenters who had the same ability and the same skill set that you did, but they worked for your company, and they all worked in 10 different locations while you're working with client A. Now you're effectively 10-folding your income or 10xing your income all within the same time frame that you are working with client A. So guys, let's say from 12 noon to 2 p.m., if you generated $200, well, multiply it times 10 more times. So that would now be your income or your billable rate. So if you paid out the contractor, let's say 50%, let's just cut it even. If you paid them 50%, you kept 50%, well, that's 50% times 10 more sources of income. So do you guys understand here what I mean when I say duplicate yourself or franchise yourself? These are some of the things that I teach in my Generational Wealth Academy and a lot of the books that I've written. I've authored 26 books. Guys, I come from a background of entrepreneurship, so that's my strong suit, my focus. And I just remember for me, just growing up, always wanting just to own my own life, be able to determine my time and how much money I was able to create. And that's where I found I was able to do that by owning business systems and creating businesses on my own. So this is why I want to be able to teach to you guys and implore to you to look at different ways that you can create passive income. Now, what is passive income? Passive income is the income that comes in with very minimal effort. Now, it takes work to get it set up, but once you do, it takes very limited or minimal effort to create an ongoing continuous income. A great example of that is real estate. I use real estate as one of my primary passive income tools. So again, ask yourself, if something happened to your physical ability to perform, what would you do? Do you have a spare income? Guys, we always drive around in our vehicles and we have spare tires. Why? In case we get a flat tire or blowout. Well, the same thing we must ask ourselves, do we have a spare income in case of a financial catastrophe, in case we get a financial flat or financial blowout? So this is why it's important to examine your particular situation and see what will be best suited for you and your family when it comes to your finances. And if you're interested in building generational wealth, this will be paramount. You have to know this information. Now, in order to build generational wealth, there's going to be 3 money skills that you have to learn. I had to learn these money skills. The first money skill is to be able to create income, and not just income, but develop a high income skill set. Now, here's a high income skill. A high income skill is a skill set that you maintain or possess that will create at least $10,000 a month or $120,000 a year or more. So you may say, well, Sean, I have a high income job, but there's a difference, because understand, as long as that company owns the company and you don't own it or have any particular ownership in it, you don't have any say so whether or not they decide to keep you or not. So that's a volatile situation, and it's a very unstable and uncertain situation. But a high skill set, no one can take a skill away from you. So with the high skill set, you're able to create your own business or your own business system. So that's the first money skill, is to be able to create a high income skill. The second skill is to be able to keep money, to be able to hold on to money. Oftentimes we get money and we want to go spend it. It's human nature. So we have to be able to hold on to that money. Now, we don't save money just to save money, but we save money to invest money. Money is just a tool. You want to be able to use money to grow and gather other monies to come back. So that leads us to the third skill set, or money skill, which is being able to multiply or be able to grow your money. It doesn't do any good just to have a pile of money and it's just sitting here. We have it under our mattress or in a closet or buried in the backyard. You have to let that money work for you. Let it go out and gather its friends, its buddies, and bring it back in multiple forms. So we do this by investing and having passive forms of income. So those are going to be the three money skills that you have to develop if you want to be able to create generational wealth and have stability when it comes to your finances. Now, here's three things that I had to change for me to be able to hone in and cultivate those three money skills. The first thing I did was I had to change what I was reading, what I was putting into my mind, because you got to realize that we get so much negative spewed into our mind through our eye gates and our ear gates and just traditions, things that we learned growing up. So what we have to do is we have to be able to dilute the negative and infuse so much positive, and right positive information can now transform our thought processes, our ideologies, the way we think about stuff. Because a lot of times you have to ask yourself, and I know I had to ask myself, how did you view money when you didn't have money? Now you have to ask yourself, if you have money, how do you view money? So it changes your perspective. So what I was reading and putting into my mind determined how I thought about money. And when I thought about money differently, I was able to now develop and acquire money. So with that, you want to always make sure that you focus on what goes into your mindset. The second thing I had to change was who I associated with. Guys, many of you, you've heard from your parents, your grandparents, your teachers. They all told us the same thing. Hang around good kids. Don't hang around the bad kids. Well, that rule never changed when we grew up. You know, if we hang around wealthy people, by default, you'll become wealthy if you follow the principles. But at the same token, if we hang around people who don't have a wealth mindset or a positive thinking mindset, then we're going to end up being just like them. So, you know, it's like in sports. The football team hung with the football team. The golf players hung with the golf players. The cheerleaders hung with the cheerleaders for the most part. And that's because they had a like-minded community and they yielded shared information. Because if you ask, well, Sean, why does the wealthy get wealthy and the poor get poor? It's because they hang with each other. Wealthy people hang with wealthy people, which means they share wealthy ideas. The same thing, people who aren't where they want to be financially aren't there because they share the same unwealthy thought processes with their friends. So you can never get ahead if you keep hanging with that same environment. The third thing I changed was what I did in my spare time. This was critically important. Again, we all have 24 hours in a day, but it's what you do with your 24 hours is what's going to make the difference. So instead of coming home, just clicking on the TV or going out to the clubs or just hanging out, not doing productive things or things that are income producing activities. Once I realized that I had to change what I did in my spare time, that's when I noticed a huge propelling situation I had with my finances. Money just started attracting to me. One, because of what I put in my head. Two, because I was hanging around other like-minded people, wealth creators. And then what I was doing in my spare time was being able to figure out the activities that would now generate income for me. So instead of coming home and just kind of lounging around or cracking a beer open and just watching TV all night, not doing anything that's going to advance you forward in your finances, change your activities. Go to networking events, listen to webinars, read books, associate with other people, go to industry meetings, things that's going to propel you forward, that's going to increase your income, will make all the difference. So those are the three things that had to change. And what you want to do is put yourself in a position where you are creating what I call a trifecta. Think of this as an example. If you had a unicycle, it takes a tremendous balancing act to maintain on a unicycle. And if that unicycle is going to stay upright and operating, you have to be on it 24/7. And you just can't do that and get the results that you want. So equate the unicycle to that of having a job. Well, let's progress. Let's take a look at a bicycle. Now we have two wheels. Now with a bicycle, we can balance, we can ride around, and we can get off of it and place the kickstand down, and the bike will stay in place. But if a good wind comes through, it'll topple the bike, because the kickstand is only there as a minimal support, but it's not sturdy enough to maintain the bike when the turbulence comes. So let's consider that having a second job, or even maybe going self-employed route. So the third method we're going to look at is a tricycle. Guys, imagine if you had a tricycle. We can pedal, we can go in circles, we can go forward, we can go backwards, and we can get off the tricycle and completely walk away, and the tricycle will still be there. It takes minimal effort for it to just stay in place. Now, if a strong wind comes through, it's not going to topple the tricycle because it has three different points that are all stable and have more stability. So think of this as having a business system, or a system in place where you're able to create a passive income. You have stability. So on a tricycle, if you had one bike or one tire on the tricycle that went flat, you still have two other ones which can still maintain and be sturdy. So again, I had to ask myself, did I want to operate with a unicycle, a bicycle, or a tricycle? Now, if we really want to take it a step further and create another stream of income, let's take the tricycle into a four-wheeler. Now, imagine how stable that is. So that analogy should really bring home the point that I'm making, where you have to realize how important it is to be able to have strong, solid sources of ongoing, continuous income. Because again, I had to realize in a job, I could not leave my job or will my job position to my children. I could have acquired a high rank in the military when I was in the Air Force, or in fact when I was in law enforcement, but I couldn't hand that over to my children. They'd have to start back over at the bottom and work their way back up. So I didn't want to go from generation to generation with the start-stop mentality, where I start and I get to the end of my career and I stop, and now my kids would have to start back over. So what we're doing by developing our Generational Wealth Academy and creating a financial trifecta, we're able to teach generation after generation how to maintain the wealth that you're building in your family. So guys, I offer an incredible course. It's an entrepreneurial development course that will teach you the basics of being able to start a business, the mindset that it's going to require, and it's valued at $197, but for a very, very limited time, I'm going to offer it to you for $47. Now, check this out. It's not just a course. I'm going to also put in 2 additional books that I've written. Guys, I've written over 25 books over the years. The 2 books I'm going to include is, one is what's called Financial Literacy. And again, that's the most important book that's going to help you getting out started in your business or your financial pursuits. Here's a great example. Habla español. Konnichiwa. Parlez-vous français? I just spoke to you in 3 different languages. But if you don't understand those languages, you're going to have a hard time coping if I were to place you in the land where they spoke that language. Well, the same holds true with your finances. If you don't speak the language of finances, you're going to have a hard time coping in the land of finances. So my book, Financial Literacy, What We Weren't Taught in School, is a tremendous and valuable tool to add into your arsenal of financial acumen. So the other book that I want to include is it's titled, Where's My Hidden Money? Guys, this book is profound. It will truly take you to another level as far as how you see money, and to discover where you have money that you may consider hidden. Because you got to think about so many different ways to think about where our money goes. I had a person that bought coffee every single morning. And they told me, well, Sean, I don't have enough money to take this course or to put my kid in an extracurricular activity. And when we did the math on it, this person actually bought a $5 cup of coffee 2 times a day. So that's $10 times 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. So guys, do you see how the money can add up and you realize where your hidden money is? Think about all the things that where we spend our money and it's not the best suited place, or in fact, it doesn't yield us return on our investment. And a return on investment is the easiest way to explain what a return on investment is when we send money out, we expect it to come back in greater multitudes. Okay, so anything that you do or any investment of time or money, you should expect a return back on both your income, a return on your investment of time as well. So with this course and these 2 books, it's going to propel you and place you in a position where you're going to be able to have a major growth in your finances and propel the trajectory of your future can be just astonishing if you follow the principles. So guys, click on the link below and we look forward to hearing from you guys here real soon.